Hi, everyone. So, as someone who's very active on social media through my own personal accounts and through Everyday Akron, which is an online community I've been running for 8 years now, a lot of people think I'm an extrovert. And I would like to tell you, you think you know, but you have no idea. Any MTV fans? I'm actually a very shy, anxious introvert. You can probably hear it in my voice right now. I think it'll go away soon. But it's a lot being up here today. But when I'm very passionate about something, weird things happen like this. I want to tell you something. Like today, I want to tell you why introverts make the best community leaders. Now, it'll sound like I'm pitting introverts against extroverts. Definitely not the case. Everyone is beautiful and great in their own way. And we also have to consider that we have different personality traits layered in, like shyness, like general anxiety, major depressive disorder, all these other fun things that, I get to have, and you might have your own little seasonings and flavorings. An extrovert versus introvert is set up as a binary, but it actually is a spectrum. So you may feel like you are an introvert, but by the end of this, maybe you're somewhere near the middle or vice versa. All right, before we get into the juice of introvert versus extrovert, what is a community leader? Your community can be a location, such as Akron, Greater Akron. It could be the block that you live in or your neighborhood. It can also be a topic or an issue that you're very passionate about. So, reproductive justice or Beyoncé. And community leaders, people look to them for information, inspiration, and guidance. And these people want to improve the lives of those around them. And they invite others in, which I think is very key. Obvious examples are nonprofit leaders, activists, and local business owners, and not so obvious, influencers and bloggers, like myself. Maybe a neighbor who runs a community garden. So the kids on the block come and they tend to that garden, and then their families can enjoy the fruits and vegetables of that labor. It could be a book club organizer or that friend who just knows every detail about an issue, and people go to them for resources and questions and whatnot, but they're not out there on the front lines as an activist. So extroverts and introverts, what are they? Carl Jung came up with these terms in the 1920s. And extroverts are those who thrive on social interactions, and they love high stimulation environments like this. They're not freaking out like I am right now. Because introverts are drained by social interactions, and they need less stimulating environments to thrive. After this, I'm taking a nap for like 3 weeks. If you don't hear from me, I'm fine, I'm just napping. And ambiverts, these are not extroverted frogs. Ambiverts are someone who's closer to the middle, and that could be just their natural state, or it could depend on a situation that they're in. All right, now how many of you think you are an introvert? That's a good amount of you, right? I think because we're quiet, people tend to think that we don't really exist or we're lying. I tell people I'm an introvert and they go, no, you're not. I'm like, no, I know. So 30 to 55% of people are introverts, which means it's normal. When I was in college, I read a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, and it changed my life. Because up until that point, I thought I had to change everything about me. And that book told me that I was normal, I was fine. Maybe just do something like this every day. Also great. But here's the thing. A lot of people think that introverts can't make great leaders. In fact, there was a survey that found that 65% of senior corporate executives thought that introversion was a barrier to leadership. And yet someone else did a study and found that introverts were incredible leaders, especially when they were leading extroverted people. So there's this weird push and pull where we think introverts can't be leaders because they're quiet and they sort of retreat into the shadows, and yet statistics show that they actually can be amazing leaders. So we need to combat some ideas, such as all leaders are extroverts and the best leaders are extroverts. Definitely not true. Introverts are loners and antisocial. I might be at times, but that doesn't mean all of them are. A lot of people think being alone is sad. Like, I want to go home, sit on my couch, hang out with my dog, and everyone goes, oh, okay, fine. All right, sad. That's not true. Being alone doesn't mean that you're lonely. A lot of people tend to think that if you're quiet, you're not thinking. When I'm quiet, I'm processing, I'm observing. There's a lot happening up here. And there's also this thing where spaces should be designed for extroverts. Think of an open office. Yikes. Let's stop with those, please. I was in Canada recently, and we were at a very communal space, and they had a list of like traits that they were striving for. And on that list was being introvert informed. And that blew me away, because when we think of accessible places, whoever thinks of the introverts, the quiet ones? So that's a challenge. I want you guys to sort of think about that as you go through your community spaces. So when it comes to being a good leader, introverts have these qualities that sort of rise to the top and make them great leaders. First, a hatred of small talk. We want those one-on-one conversations. We want to get to know people. We don't want to talk about the weather. And we're also great listeners, because we hate that small talk. We carefully process information, so we're great at problem solving, and we are less reactive. Again, extroverts, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not very reactive. That's fine, But introverts sort of tend to sway onto this side of things. Also, creative people are often introverts because they like solitude and they thrive in that environment that really lets those creative juices flow. And so people like Emily Dickinson, Steven Spielberg, Georgia O'Keeffe, those might make sense, right? As them being introverts. Beyoncé is an introvert. Who would have guessed? One of the biggest stars on the planet. And yet, she'll go hang out in a museum instead of like going out and partying if she's in a new city, right? And also, I think introverts are more inclusive by default. We know how it feels to be overlooked, and we know how it feels to be left out. And it goes back to being or hating small talk. We know how people are feeling. We know what these issues are, and we want to get into the heart of it. So if we add all of this up, what are some examples of great leaders? How about Rosa Parks, Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt, Michael Jordan, Gandhi, and even Barack Obama? So if I'm telling you you can be a community leader, believe me, because if Obama is an introvert and led a whole country, like you can start small. You can, do something that works for you. All right, so now what? Extroverts, I want you to stop, look, and listen. Who around you is being excluded? Who's being overlooked? And consider other perspectives. You don't have to be an introvert after this. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm gonna go home and like hang out with my dog and read a book. I'll do that, you don't have to. And also help an introvert. Maybe you don't want to be a community leader yourself as an extrovert, but there's probably an introvert around you who is like dying to do some sort of project and just needs that extra push, or you can be that voice for them. And introverts, I want you to think if you want to be a community leader, because I know a lot of you probably say, well, I can't do it. I'm too introverted. I don't like people. But do you know that in your heart of hearts, or is it what society has been telling you since day one? Just because you're quiet. It's gonna be the latter, okay? Also, stop believing those lies that your bonus traits are telling you. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, and man, do they come with a lot of lies. You gotta stop believing those, because you can be an amazing community leader. Also, don't feel guilty about recharging. Do what you need to do to get that energy back and go out and lead your community. And also know that your community leadership is valid. I don't care if you're rallying around something so small as the color of tape on a stage, or something bigger like Beyoncé, or a giant politicized issue. Whatever type of community you want to lead, it's going to be valid. And for my extroverts, I forgot one more thing. I want you to try to do this maybe like 5 minutes a day. Please be quiet. Thank you.